Today we're going to be talking about everything you might need to know if you are considering moving to Wake Forest, North Carolina, so stay tuned.
All right, so as far as where Wake Forest is located, so it's on the northeast side of Raleigh, and it's going to be about, give or take, if you're in like the heart of Wake Forest heading to the heart of Raleigh, you're going to be about a 30-minute drive. Obviously, that's going to be dependent on what time of day you're doing it. Honestly, one of the worst roads in the triangle heads straight from Wake Forest into Raleigh. As far as its proximity, Capitol Boulevard. As far as its proximity to Durham, you're going to be about a 40 to 45 minute drive from Wake Forest to Durham as well. So it's a little bit isolated, but it's still in a relatively good location.
Yeah, and if you don't need to be getting to downtown Raleigh, it's incredibly close to the northern section of Raleigh. They touch one another, so you could be like 10 minutes from North Raleigh and going places. North Raleigh is probably one of our favorite parts of Raleigh anyway, but there's like a lot of green space and really good shopping, like Lafayette Village, North Hill, stuff like that. It's not going to feel quite as far as like the heart of Raleigh.
Yeah, because most people aren't going from like the heart of Wake Forest to the heart of Raleigh. So that's kind of it's a good reference point, but it's not the average everyday person.
Right, like anytime you go to Raleigh, it's not always going to take you 30 minutes. It's just going to take you 30 minutes if you're like going to downtown.
Exactly. As far as the size of Wake Forest, so it's on the smaller size of one of the towns in the area. So it's about 50,000 in population. So again, to put that in perspective, Raleigh's right at what, 500,000 roughly. Durham's,
a little under that.
Yeah, Durham's like 250,000. Cary is like 170,000, I think. So Wake Forest is definitely on the smaller side of those towns.
Yeah, so if you're looking for a small town feel, Wake Forest is definitely a great option that still keeps you close to the heart of Raleigh and Durham.
So I would lump Wake Forest into the category of being one of the more affordable towns around Raleigh, but where it excels more than some of the other affordable towns around Raleigh is amenities, and that's green space and commercial space. Wake Forest really excels at that. Yeah,
for sure. When you go in some of the other areas, there's a lot of housing that's been built, but the commercial hasn't really kept up, and that's not the case in Wake Forest. Sometimes they announce more commercial. I'm like, do we need any more commercial space in Wake Forest? Like, there's already so many groceries, so many, big box stores.
Arguably, it's too much. In a way, but
it's probably appropriate for growing at the rate that it's growing, because there's a lot of construction happening in this area in general. But it is really nice. You've got like a Wegmans, you've got your Harris Teeter, multiple different types of grocery stores. There's a Lidl, which I still haven't been into. I kind of want to. Apparently, it's like a step up from Aldi or something, so still want to go into there. But there's a lot of all the chain type places that you want to have, like a Target or restaurants, Chick-fil-A's, different things like that. You're going to find all of that here. It's not like you're like, oh, to go to Starbucks, I have to go to Raleigh or something. Like, it's all going to be right here. And I'm not saying that's what makes
as well as a healthy dose of like local spots as well.
Exactly. In downtown, you have more of the local spots. A lot of cool things like Shorty's Hot Dogs. It's over 100 years old downtown. So cool. Lots of just neat spots all around Wake Forest, which is nice, and the parks and green spaces in the area are stunning. We're in Joyner Park right now. This is one of our favorite parks in the whole triangle. It's massive. There's so much you can do here. They've got a rec center and a playground that's on the newer side, maybe built, 5-ish years ago. But the rest of the park is more walking trails and fields and just a really nice place to come go running or go on a walk, have a picnic, whatever it might be. It's just a beautiful area. And they're continuously expanding the Greenway Trail system here. And when you go to some of the other suburbs of Raleigh, like Cary or Apex, there's like a huge Greenway Trail scene. And that is starting to pick up here. Right now, there's like almost 16 miles of Greenway Trail, but they're continuing to add more. So it'll be really cool to see how much more we get in Wake Forest in the next few years.
Absolutely.
So in Wake Forest, as far as housing goes, there is a large amount of new construction opportunities. So far this year, 2024, there have been about 40% of the homes that have sold in Wake Forest have been new construction. That's going to include townhomes and single family, but there's a lot of new construction options for sure around the Wake Forest area. So if you are interested in new construction, this is definitely a great spot to check out. And the new construction here is a little bit more unique than in some of the other suburbs where, you have a lot of like what we're walking around right now, kind of the more standard average price new construction with townhomes and single family with like a smaller yard.
Yeah.
But you also have a really large presence of the luxury estate home new construction in Wake Forest. So if you are looking for like a custom built home that sits on like an acre or more of land, maybe it's like over 3,000 square feet, there is a large amount of opportunity for that in the Wake Forest area as well.
There is. And so when it comes to average price points in the Wake Forest area, the median average in 2024, this is just for single family, was roughly $589. I believe I say roughly, that's a pretty exact number. It was exactly $589 for the median price point. The average, so if you're looking at the average price point is going to be quite a bit higher than the median just because of the presence of what Cindy just talked about, which is the luxury custom home. So if you're looking just at the average price point, you're going to be closer to the 700,000 mark. But that's not really indicative of the price points I think you find in Wake Forest. The median is going to be much more accurate. And so,
and even the median feels a little bit high for like some of these new constructions are like more in the upper 4s, mid 5s. So if you're like in the 4s or 5s, Wake Forest is definitely a good option still.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more affordable options, and with the presence of new construction. I mean, you think of like areas that have a lot of new construction: Clayton, Fuquay, Wake Forest, Wendell. Wake Forest is going to be on the more expensive side of those 4 areas, but you're going to have significant options.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, have you subscribed to our channel yet? Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We put videos like this out on a weekly basis, and we'd love to have you follow along. If you have an idea for a video, we'd also love to hear it, so definitely drop it in the comments below. So as far as like the overall feel of Wake Forest, I feel like it has a really good combination of new and old. It feels smaller and charming, but yet still has a lot of access to new things, new home building, obviously new commercial areas like we had mentioned, which I really, really like. So that's a really nice element to it. It feels very family friendly and just like a suburbia heaven. So if you like the feel of a suburb, you're gonna love Wake Forest. If you want an urban city center, this is definitely not for you. Yeah,
Cindy mentioned kind of the charming aspect. Like, I really think really only 2 towns in our area have that. I would say Hillsborough has an element of that, and Wake Forest has an element of that. There's a street in Wake Forest where a lot of historical houses are on it's called Main Street. And it's just like, it's reminiscent of what you would find in like a small or even like a large coastal town that just has a very historic feel, like a lot of historic homes and like the canopy trees over it. And it's just really beautiful. And you don't find that in a lot of places in our area, really outside of Wake Forest and Hillsborough, maybe Chapel Hill, maybe like the
there are definitely other elements.
The campus of Chapel Hill or something like that. But it just as far as that like charming feel goes, I think Wake Forest and Hillsborough are really going to be the two areas where you can find that. Yeah,
you just feel like you have a lot of like rich history around for whatever reason that is in Wake Forest. I'm not really sure. In Hillsborough, there's a lot richer history probably than Wake Forest, but we're on the southeastern campus, which used to be Wake Forest University. So this just has like a very historic and like charming feel to it. So I think that this helps kind of stabilize some of that, but it's a really cool area. And so as far as things that we really like about Wake Forest and don't like, you know, obviously we just mentioned a lot of things we like. I love all the access to parks and nature trails. It feels very green around Wake Forest, which is nice. Easy access to go shopping and things like that, which is really nice. And just kind of a growing park scene, I feel like.
Yeah, and just a lot of accessibility when it comes to homes. I mean, when you look at inventory in Wake Forest, it tends to be really good, whether that's on the new construction side or the resale side. You tend to have a lot of options, and you don't get that in other parts of the area. Competition, depending, I mean, I don't want to make too big of a blanket statement, but competition in Wake Forest can sometimes be a little less than it is in places like Cary and Apex, which is really nice. And so, it's just for those reasons, we love that about Wake Forest.
Yeah, things we don't like so much. We mentioned in the beginning of this video, it does feel a little isolated from the rest of the triangle. I mean, if you just need to get into Raleigh every now and then, it's totally fine. But if you wanted to be kind of all over and not feel like locked into one place, you know, you definitely don't have that easy access to get around. It's still not that far from things, but you know, that is a little bit of an isolated feeling. And I feel like the construction here has grown rapidly, and I would not say the roads have kind of kept up with that. So from like a city planning element, I think a lot of these new construction neighborhoods have been built off the same road. So Zach used to live here. So before we got married, about 10-ish years ago, you know, when I would come and visit Zach in Wake Forest, because I lived in Durham, you know, it feels totally different now. And like the traffic is definitely a lot heavier. And so I do wish maybe that was done a little more thoughtfully. And I don't know what that looks like in the future as far as road expansions might go and stuff. But as far as like the city planning element, it's definitely been a lot of homes added in a short amount of time, which has its pros and cons.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I mean, a lot of that's going to be subjective too, right? Like if you're coming from an area where it takes you 2 hours to drive 10 miles, Wake Forest is not going to feel congested to you.
No,
but if you're coming from a more rural area where, you know, you're used to kind of back country roads and the slower movement of life, Wake Forest is going to feel probably really congested. And there are some proposed plans to kind of alleviate that. There's some proposed DOT plans for Capitol Boulevard, basically from Wake Forest down to 540, that would turn it into a freeway. Last I checked, that's not a funded project, so that's not something that is guaranteed to take place. But if it did, that would alleviate some of the traffic as far as getting from Wake Forest down to the Highway 540. So there are potential plans to essentially make it better.
Yeah.
But that is an issue.
Yeah.
All right, but I'm Zach. This is my beautiful wife, Cindy. We are a couple of real estate agents in the area. So if you are looking to buy or sell, our team would love to be your real estate resource of choice. You can find us at the contact info below.
Yep, and we would love to have you follow along on Instagram. You can find us at the Honeycutt Realtors on Instagram. And we also have a second page, the RDU Buzz, that kind of goes over restaurants, news, development, things around the area. So we'd love to have you follow along on both, or you can find us by Googling thehoneycutteam.com.
Yep, and we will see y'all next time.